Hi everyone, this is Heather. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I have a card tutorial for you and we're going to make this sweet little Otter Valentine card. And today I'm going to be using the Hey Love stamp set from Stampin' Up. Sorry for the overhead lighting glare. I've used this on several cards already. It's just my favorite stamp set that's out right now, so I just think it's adorable with the little bird, the skunk, the crocodile, and today we're using the little otter. Then I'm also using some dies from the Be Mine Stitch Framelits dies. I'm using the scallop die. And then I'm also using 3 of the rectangles from the rectangle stitched framelits dies as well. So for the base of my card, I'm using some crumb cake cardstock. And then I'm using a piece of Flirty Flamingo, and I'm going to be die cutting that with the stitched rectangle die that is 4 3/4 inch high. Then a piece of white, and that will be die cut with the one that is 4 1/2 high. And then I'm also using one of the long ones that is 3 inches long on a piece of crumb cake. So those are the dies we're going to be using. So the first thing I'm going to do is stamp out my otter with some black memento ink in the center of my white cardstock. And I'm going to be coloring him in with some Stampin' Blends markers. So using the light crumb cake marker, I'm going to color in his face, his belly, and the bottom of his feet. And then with light soft suede, I'm going to color the rest of his body. So I filled everything else in with the light crumb cake. I'm going to take some dark crumb cake and just add a little shading and shadowing here and there in some different areas. And now that I've added that, I'm just going to take the light crumb cake and just kind of blend those two together. So I've just blended those two together. I'm using dark pink pirouette. I'm going to color in the little heart of the thought bubble. Give him some little pink cheeks and also a little bit of pink on the bottom of his feet. I've kept the coloring very simple. So for this next step, I have taken the scallop edged die and I have cut it from a long strip of white cardstock. So I've got the really pretty stitched scallop edge on one side. I'm actually going to set that off to the side and you can use that for another project. I'm going to take, I guess what you would call the negative space that sort of has some ridges on it, and I will be using that in a minute as a mask to make the little waves on the background. So I'm going to be doing some ink blending, and I'm starting off with Pool Party, and I recently did a video using these new makeup brushes as blender brushes. I will link to that in the description box down below, give you a little bit more information about these, but any type of ink blender that you have will work. So I'm just going to pick up some of that Pool Party. I'm going to lightly start off just swirling around the otter, trying not to get too close so I don't overlap the coloring that I've already done, but getting pretty close in there. So I want it a little bit darker close to him and a little bit lighter going out. So I'm just going to continue to build up and blend out the color all the way around him. And this will take a couple of minutes. Just take your time, light soft pressure, swirling out until you get kind of just a nice halo of color all the way around your otter. So I'm going to continue ink blending and I will be back. So now I've got this nice kind of halo of the Pool Party ink all the way around my little otter, and now I'm going in with Balmy Blue, which is a slightly darker blue and a little bit of a smaller blending brush, and I'm going to take that piece that I die cut and pick up a little bit of ink, And I'm just going to kind of start on the cardstock and swirl up towards the other blue, and that kind of gives you like a neat little wave pattern. So don't go, you can kind of see there, I just kind of hit the edge. Make sure you don't ink up the edge of your cardstock there, just so that you can keep that kind of smooth line. So just pick up a little bit of ink and just kind of stagger it around on the background and just move the little mask that you've created. Just a light swirling motion. And you get that nice little wave pattern. So I'm just going to kind of move along, sort of space it out, and just continue adding more of these little wave shapes. So I've just taken that little kind of mask stencil that I've created and just kind of worked my way up and added that nice little wave texture there. If you have any sections where you feel like it's maybe a little too dark or you want to blend it, you can go back in with a lighter brush and kind of go over and blend everything back in. It's pretty forgiving. You can do a lot of layers of the ink and continue to blend it out. So the next step that I'm going to do is take the die cut and I'm going to center it over my inked piece and grab a couple of pieces of repositionable tape and tape that in place where I would like it to be. And then I'm also going to take my pink piece with the larger stitched rectangle die, and I'm going to run both of these through the die cut machine. So I've run these through the die cut machine, and I'm just going to set these pieces aside for now. I'm going to bring over a smaller piece of crumb cake, and using my clear Versamark ink, I'm going to stamp the words, and they say, "You oughter be my Valentine." And I want to leave enough space to be able to use that die cut around it. It's probably going to be a little hard to see on camera because it's clear. I'm just going to take some white embossing powder in an embossing tray and just pour the embossing powder on. And I'm going to take my heat tool, I'm going to melt my embossing powder. So here's my embossing done. I love that bright white on that crumb cake. It really pops. So I'm going to lay this long skinny of the stitched dies down, and I'm going to kind of get the left hand side close to the edge of those words. I'm going to tape this in place and run it through my die cut machine. And now that I've die cut that, I'm going to bring this piece over to the piece that has the otter on it. I'm going to line it up and give myself enough space for the punch. I'm just going to hold it there in place so I can see how much I want to trim off. Turn it over and take my scissors and just trim that excess off. You could also use your paper trimmer if you're not comfortable with the scissors. And now I'm going to take an 8-inch hole punch and I punch a hole on the right hand side. And now I have two 6-inch pieces. One is of ribbon and one is of twine. And I'm going to fold these in half together. And now I'm going to take those two ends that are folded in half and I'm going to push them through the hole that I punched. So once I've got those pulled through, I'm going to open up the loops. It's going to be a little tricky to see on camera, but I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to take these tails, all of them, and I'm going to pull them through the loops. And then carefully pull those tight. So I hope you were able to see that on camera. It's a little bit difficult to do, but I call that a bookmark knot because that's kind of reminds me of how a bookmark looks. And I'm just going to take my scissors and trim all these off. And now I'm ready to put my card together. On the back of the otter, I'm just going to use some tape runner, and I'm going to adhere that to the pink. Just center that on. And then that's going to go on my card base. I'm going to add a couple of foam squares to the back of the words. So next I'm going to line up the edge of that craft piece with the edge that we've stamped, and I wanted to add just a little bit more detail. So I've got a white gel pen. I'm just using a Uniball Signo, and I wanted the speech bubble to be really nice and bright and white, so I'm going to color that in. And then right along the sides of those little stamp lines, add just a little bit of white. It just adds just a nice little bright touch. And then you can also add a couple of little lines to him as well, just to give him a little bit more highlight. So there's our finished card. I really like the bright white with the craft and that fun stenciling effect with the ink blending in the background, and this otter is just absolutely adorable. So I hope you enjoyed this card tutorial. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to check out my channel. I have lots of other card tutorials and product reviews for you, and I hope you have a wonderful Valentine's Day. This is Heather. Bye.